What's up guys, welcome back to the channel, and today we will be reacting to 6 ways British and American driving is very different. It's another Lost in the Pond video, go and check him out, absolutely fantastic content over there. Lawrence seems like a great guy as well, only had a few interactions on Twitter with him, but he seems like an absolute legend from his videos as well, so go and check him out guys. If you like reactions from a British guy like myself, I do a lot of Lost in the Pond, I do a lot of other general US and US sports, 2 a day. Hit that subscribe button, I'd seriously appreciate it. Hit that notification bell as well. Hit that like button guys as well. If you're a legend who's already subscribed, I really appreciate it. And if you're a new subscriber, let's try and hit 200 likes on this video. Like, come on, just take a second now and hit that like button. I would seriously appreciate it. Now, I know obviously our driving, we drive on the left, right hand side, if that makes sense. So the driver's on the right hand side of the car and we drive on the left. I think you guys are the opposite, right side, left hand side of the car. It's so weird for me. Like I'm a righty. I drive my right, do my gears my left. I can't imagine having full control of the steering wheel with my left. But hey ho, it is what it is. And maybe I'll give it a go one day. You never know. But let's get straight into this video, guys. I am very keen for this one. Let's see how different our driving is.
If you've ever seen those country roads in the United Kingdom, I think half of American cars wouldn't be able to fit. They'd have to cut through the fields and potentially kill hundreds of cows, you know, bringing it back to South Dakota.
Always bigger.
Hello, I'm Lawrence and I'm on a quest to uncover all of the memos that Britain and America lost in the pond, and one of those memos pertains to driving. I think it's a well-known fact that driving etiquette and just driving practices in general are different on either side of the pond, but how are they different? Having lived in the United States now for 11 years, I'm here to tell you, even though I don't drive. From the driving test...
Whoa, Lawrence, you can't be telling us when you don't drive. It's okay though, guys. If you've never seen Lost in the Pond, it does a lot of research, so I'm sure it'll smash it out of the park anyway. I mean, I drive, so hopefully I'll be able to clear a few things up on the UK side.
Right through to the cars themselves and, you know, the side of the road that we drive on, as well as the words that we use to describe car things. It just goes to show that Britain and America are two nations divided by a common median / central reserve. Now, before we get underway, you may be thinking, why should I take any information on this matter from somebody who doesn't drive? Well, the truth of the matter is, I did try to learn to drive, actually, here in the United States, so I have experience of that. I have no experience back in England, but I've seen cars, nearly got killed by one once. I was on my bike. You didn't need to know that. And so without further ado, let's take a look at 6 ways that Britain and America's car culture is very, very different.
I know I've paused a lot already, and I promise you guys it's a 40-minute video. I won't pause too much. But I was just thinking, he said he did his test in the US. Don't you guys do automatic mainly? Like my car at the moment's automatic, but I've always learned how to drive a manual. I think you guys call it a stick shift or a shift stick. Something like that. I may be wrong on that. But don't, like, a lot of you guys just learn automatic, where us, we have to learn manual pretty much. That makes sense? I don't know. Let me know in the comments, guys. I think it is that. But yeah, launches his research, so I'm sure I'll smash it anyway.
Okay, so before we get into the good stuff, a little bit about how people acquire their licenses in both countries. Okay. In the United Kingdom, where I'm from, you can get a full license at the age of 17, but until then, as soon as you apply for one, you have to have a provisional license until you pass your driving test. These provisional licenses can be acquired from the age of 15 years and 9 months, very specific. Whereas in the United States, this actually varies from state to state. And they don't really call that pre-license a provisional license, but a restricted driver's license. And notice, of course, the difference between driving license and driver's license. And the spelling of license. Now, like I said...
You guys spell license different? Oh, yeah. I mean, end of the day, it is what it is. I call it driving license. You probably call it driver's license. Fair enough.
Of license. Now, like I said, it does differ from state to state. In South Dakota, for example, you can acquire one of these restricted licenses from the age of 14 years and 3 months. And that's issued by a department called the South Dakota Department of Public Safety. But, you know, to be fair, South Dakota is one of the 5 least densely populated states in the nation. So it's the cows that I worry for. Now, that's kind of an extreme example. And in any case, when we're talking about passing your driver's test and getting your full unrestricted license, that will happen anywhere from the age of 16 to 18, depending on the state. Now, in Britain, a driving test consists of 3 sections. You've got your theory exam, your hazard perception exam, and then your supervised driving exam. Now,
that is very true, but the hazard perception has only just come in. I did mine, 4 years ago, I did not have to do a hazard perception. So it's only recent, that one. So if you've done it before, then you didn't have to do it. I imagine it's the same in the US. Let me know.
In the United States, or at least Indiana, where I took lessons, I was taught by a combination of my wife and my grandfather-in-law, who to this very day remain among the bravest people I've ever known. But to even get to the point of taking those driving lessons, I had to take a written test, which was easy. I didn't even revise for it. It was mostly common sense stuff. And I had to have an eye test as well, just to make sure that I could see things. And once I passed the written test and the eye test with flying colours, hazel mainly, I was then given a learner's permit, or was it a restricted licence? I'm confused about that. But something was given to me and I was able to drive around parking lots for a bit.
Nice.
Never passed the test, and now that I live in Chicago, don't really need to. But I've been in the passenger seat on many an occasion, including one where we crashed. Probably didn't help that I never took driving lessons in the UK, but even if I had, I might have been even more confused, particularly because of the next difference.
Right, left. This is what
I think it goes
about
without saying, mostly because most people are aware of this, that Britain and America definitely drive on different sides of the road. Yeah. Indeed, I've heard British people say, why do Americans drive on the wrong side of the road? But I don't think the burden of accountability lies with Americans. Indeed, like the United States, the majority of the planet, not including oceans, drive on the right. Because of this, of course, really? America has the steering wheel on the left, Britain has kept theirs on the right. But this was not always the case, at least in terms of American cars and American roads. Before the 1908 launch of the Ford Motor Company's Model T, virtually every car in America placed the steering wheel on the right. In fact, Ford only made that change to make it easier for people entering on the passenger side to avoid oncoming traffic. Until this, though, long after a law was passed in 1792 mandating that vehicles, horse buggies and the like, must travel along the right side of the road, it was widely accepted that steering should take place on the right. Evidence of this can still be found today, in fact, in Amish communities where horse buggies are sometimes steered in this manner. When mass production of American cars began in the late 19th century, it was widely viewed that right-hand steering was the preferred method, since, it had evidently worked out just fine for the journeymen of yesteryear. However, by the turn of the century, motor companies began looking for innovative new ways to sell their latest product. Cadillac introduced the first lever-operated headlights, while the Marmon Motor Company is believed to have pioneered the use of a rear-view mirror in 1911, and so it was that Ford introduced left-hand steering in 1908. And because it was later seen that left-hand steering was conducive to safer driving, since it was easier for the driver to judge his or her proximity to oncoming traffic, this new way of steering became virtually standardized by the mid-1910s, and has remained thus to this very day. But there is one United States territory that has bucked the trend, and that's the United States Virgin Islands. There, they drive on the
Virgin Islands, where's that? Let me know in the comments, guys. By the way, it makes sense, the driver should always be closest to the centre of the road to get oncoming traffic. That's the most dangerous. If you hit the wall to your right, yes, it's dangerous, but it's not as dangerous hitting another car, if that makes sense. So I completely agree with that. And we got the evolution, a bit of back history, which was awesome there. But Virgin Islands, the United States, what? I've never heard of them.
Left, despite the fact that the steering wheels are also on the left. It must be chaos. Who knows? I've not tried it, but maybe one day. Now, whether you drive on the right or the left, there's no disputing which country has the most cars.
US, surely.
When it comes to car ownership, Britain cannot hold a candle to the United States. And that probably makes sense for reasons that I've outlined before. We have a fairly well-connected rail system across the entire country. That's something that the United States does not really boast. And in Britain, most towns and cities do have a fairly comprehensive bus system. So you don't always have to drive to work, for example, or to your kid's sports day. If you take the bus, you've got an excuse if you're late. America is a wide open country. Not everywhere has great public transportation. And add to that, the popularity around cars is just a big part of American culture. Certainly has been since the 20th century. And so these reasons perhaps account for why there are only 471 cars in Britain for every 1,000 people. I say only, that probably sounds like a lot, but that number includes children in the population. So if you just eradicate children, not literally, just in this scenario, then, that number is going to be quite a lot higher, but it probably still wouldn't reach America's number of cars per person, even if you include American children in this. Some of whom, of course, South Dakota knows all about that. Because in the United States, there are 838 cars for every 1,000 people. Now,
I thought it was just going to basically say there's more people in the US, so there's more cars, but when you actually put it into the percentages, go down the statistic of per every 100,000, sorry, per 1,000, 100,000 is COVID, isn't it? But per 1,000, It's basically double. Wow, that's a huge difference. And yeah, like you say, you don't really think about it when you've grown up in England and the UK, about the railway system, about the bus stops and stuff like that. You don't think other places potentially don't have it as good. But again, the US is so big. If you want to travel to another state, the infrastructure you'd have to have railroads in there constantly to have a good bus, like to be able to afford a good bus route to different states. Absolutely mental. So I completely get it. 100%. You've got to be able to drive over there. And maybe the whole thing of what I said before, automatic manual, that may play a bit of a part into it. Because again, in the UK, I personally don't know anyone who's ever got an automatic as their first car and only ever done an automatic test. But I'm sure it happens. It's mainly manual, and that could potentially put a few people off. I imagine it puts a few Americans off if they had to do it that way as well.
Now, certain states in America do have a disproportionate stranglehold on this very stat. Take, for example, the state of Wyoming. Okay. There are more cars per capita in that state than any other state in the nation. There are, in fact, 1,100 cars for every 1,000 people. It is one of 7 states in the Union where cars outnumber people. Wow. And then there's car production as well. The United States is the second highest producer of automobiles in the entire world behind China, and it's certainly way ahead of Britain. And so much for the number of cars. What about the amount of miles we're actually driving? Well, the United States absolutely kicks Britain's arse on that one. A 2010
Okay, it's not surprising, is it? It's not surprising.
Study found that British people on average drive about 6,500 miles a year, which if you do the mathematics on that, that's about 18 miles a day, which that sounds like a lot to me. But that's nothing compared to the United States, because Americans on average are doing twice that amount each year. The average American drives about 13,000 miles a year, which is about 36 miles a day. That sounds like hell. And I know that it is because I used to drive from Anderson to Indianapolis and back. You're talking there about 40 miles, so that was about 80 miles a day I used to do. That was routine. I knew a lot of people that were doing that, and that's not the only commute route, of course, of that size in the United States. And yet again, these numbers could be swayed by certain states out west. Take, for example, Wyoming again. 21,821 miles per capita per year driven by the folks of Wyoming. It is number 1 in the nation yet again, and that's about 60 miles a day. So, I mean, this is the state of Wyoming where there are only 2 escalators in the entire state. They're used to doing things the hard way.
Oh, mate, if that's actually a true fact, that's pretty buzzing. Only 2? You need to get more, 100%. But again, it goes on to the fact, I think I did a poll a while ago. What do you guys like? International travel, flying between states, or road trip? And so many people said road trip. One, it's awesome. I mean, I've never really done too many road trips in the UK, again, the size. But in the US, you could go on a massive road trip and go all over the place. Different diverse cultures and everything, which is awesome. I know it takes a lot of time, but that definitely racks the miles up as well.
It's official, there are no 2 ways about this. American cars, and you can quote me on this, American cars are approximately massive. For once, I don't really have any statistics to back this up. It's observational fact.
Okay.
In the US, you have chunky SUVs, massive 4x4 trucks, and those big family vans that hold up to 287 children. In Britain, you have the hatchback. All that to say that cars are just smaller in the United Kingdom. I mean, most things are, right? The roads are smaller, so we have smaller cars and we have fewer people using them in general. Here, those 4x4 trucks that Marty covets in Back to the Future and eventually gets are fairly common here. You've probably seen them. They're usually owned by people who think they own the roads. If you've ever seen those country roads in the United Kingdom, I think half of American cars wouldn't be able to fit. They'd have to cut through the fields and potentially kill hundreds of cows, bringing it back to South Dakota.
Maybe not too much in the England exactly. For some country roads, definitely what you're saying, American cars won't fit down. But if you look a little bit outside of England, where I currently am, Jersey, holy, honestly, the lanes are so small, and some of them green lanes, because at the end of the day, it's a small island. And a lot of the time you'll go down, there'll be a branch in the way. Okay, you got to turn around. A lot of the time you'll go down and you got to reverse the entire road because another car's coming on. And honestly, some of your cars definitely would not fit. They are tight as. Just literally, if you're on Google Maps, go to Jersey and just pick anywhere in the centre of the island, you're going to get a green lane and it is going to be tiny. It's absolutely mental. And again, some places in the UK, pretty much the same. You guys have massive highways and stuff like that. Yes, we have motorways, but we do have a lot of country lanes, and it definitely make a difference, 100%. But again, it's all size-based, isn't it? So we're a lot condensed.
Of course, they're less likely to do that if drivers have a better understanding of signage.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
There's a big difference when it comes to road signs, and that's partly because in Britain we conform largely to European standards and Americans, weirdly, don't. I'm being stupid on purpose just to enjoy it, but that's why British signs around the country are very similar to what you might find in, say, France or Germany and the like, except, you know, without kilometres. We have miles, despite being metric. And our signs are in English, unless you're in Wales, where they're written in consonants.
Welsh.
And in the United States, there is adherence to the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices. This is chiefly federal guidance on road signage, but there are some states, 8 in fact, that go by their own state's version of what the signage should be. So depending on the state you're in, the signage could be different. So do look out for that if you're ever moving here, or even if you just live here already and you're traveling to another state. And then some states, you know who you are, have a combination of both state and federal regulations. That is called sitting on the fence.
And
now, quick caveat here, when it comes to US and British signage, it's not all entirely different. Take, for example, the stop sign. They're almost identical. Same with no entry and give way, except in the United States, it's called yield.
Makes sense.
Fine, but what about some of the millions of signs that are completely different? Here's a very, very, very brief sample of some of those that you might come into contact with. So our interchange road signs employ different colours and just different markings in general. No parking signs. This is very important. Take a look. They are quite different in colour and in just appearance in general.
I mean, again, I can't really complain. Yours literally has the text on it. It makes sense, to be honest with you. I obviously know the left one, but come on, it's got the text. You can't go wrong with that. Mile per hour, you actually say mile per hour. It's just a different colour, isn't it? It means the same thing.
This is your speed limit right here compared to the United States. And not only do train crossing signs differ from country to country, but in the United States, they usually use the word railroad crossing, and the sign looks like this.
It makes sense.
And as somebody who doesn't drive, the no pedestrian signs are the ones I look out for, and they are quite markedly different. There are some funny ones too. Tanks allowed. That's true in both the United Kingdom, in parts of the United Kingdom, and in Pennsylvania. Basically, there's an absolute plethora of signage differences. I only scratched the surface there. But getting all of them into this video would have been an uphill struggle. I only said that so I could get that sign in there. And actually, while we're on the subject of wordplay, that brings us on to our final entry.
Okay. Words. Before we get on to words, I just want to say I prefer your signs because, like I said a second ago, they actually just say what it is. You don't have to try and figure it out. If you're learning, it's not, what is this sign of a man walking? It says no pedestrians. It is simple. I prefer your way 100%.
There are a staggering number of terminological differences to do with automobiles between the United States and the United Kingdom. This is partially because, of course, both countries devise their rules and regulations around the roads independently of each other. But, and this is by no means an exhaust, if list, here are the key differences. Alright, in British English you have bonnet, in American English you have hood, you have boot instead of trunk.
Oh, these are all weird to me. On it like a car bonnet is a fantastic saying. Boot makes sense to me. Bumper fender, pretty much the same, isn't it? You're just adding an extra word on for no reason.
Bumper instead of also bumper, but maybe sometimes fender. Car park instead of parking lot. Central reserve instead of median. Crossroads instead of four-way stop. Curve instead of bend. Driving license instead of driver's license. Dual carriageway instead of divided highway or freeway. Gear stick instead of gear shift or
Okay, I said a shift stick, so pretty much the same as what I said. By the way, I agree with all the Britain ones so far.
Shifter, give way instead of yield, indicator instead of turn signal, or blinker. Lorry or truck, whereas in the US it's usually just truck. The generalised British term motorway can encompass anything from expressway to highway to interstate to freeway. You've got motorway services area, or simply services, which equates in the United States to rest area or rest stop or travel plaza. You have pavement versus sidewalk, petrol cap versus gas cap, petrol station versus gas station, roundabout versus also roundabout but maybe rotary, or traffic circle. You have windscreen instead of windshield, and zebra crossing instead of crosswalk. And with that, we've hit the red light on this video. That was a reference to the stoplight on traffic lights, not the dodgy area of Amsterdam. There's plenty more to say on this subject, and I dare say I will do so in the future. Meanwhile, let me know in the comments what your favourite difference is, or what...
Well, we'll leave that now because we've hit the red light district. I don't know how we did hit that on Amsterdam on a driving video, but we did. Lawrence has a lot of funny jokes. I really enjoy his videos. Hit that like button, guys. Let me know your favourite bit about driving, or if you guys know any other differences what wasn't mentioned in this video. Like I said, Your signs are way better than ours. I've got to say that. It just says what it is. It makes sense. Again, with the whole driving thing, left or right, it doesn't really make a difference. It's whatever you're used to. And maybe I'll give it a go in the US one day. You never know. Stranger things have happened, so potentially could give it a go. And it's all memory as well, so I imagine I could mess it up a few times, because especially when you're driving, I don't know, do you guys ever have it where you're on a nice little long road trip? I say long for me, half an hour to an hour. That's pretty long for me. Obviously you guys, it's like 4 or 5 hours, which is absolutely insane. And you just not daydream, but you get to a point and you're like, I can't remember passing that bit there, because you're kind of in autopilot, you know. And so I imagine it could be pretty dangerous if I did drive in the US, because I'd be in autopilot and potentially auto onto the wrong side of the road or something like that. But it is what it is. It's all way you learn. Let me know some of the questions I had in the comments, guys, about your manual versus automatic, or your shift stick versus automatic. I'd really appreciate that. Hit that like button, subscribe if you're new, and have a fantastic day. Peace.